So, dear friends, we have these very dramatic readings from the book of Maccabees, the first book of Maccabees, in these last couple of days. And they are readings of a violent revolt against the Greeks, who were obviously imposing their idolatry on the Jews. And the reactions are strong, because this is it's an exceptional time. It's a brutal time. It's a violent time. But just on Tuesday there, we had the reading which describes Eliezer, who's an older man, an older Jew, and again the Greeks had promulgated this law that the Jews must taste pig meat, pork, in order to show that they had left their ways behind them. And of course, the way it was all phrased was King Antiochus did this in order that all the people would be one. It's very interestingly phrased, you know. He doesn't do this because he hates the Jews per se. He does this so that all people might come together and be one. You know, so what's the difficulty here? The difficulty here is your faith. You have faith, so you are the problem. Your faith is getting in the way of us being one. So renounce your faith, and then we can all have kind of vague ideas of deities, and then we're all united, right? But if you hold on to your strict traditions and your law, your Jewish law, then you're the problem. You're the source of this disunity. So the solution is obviously renounce your faith, and then we can all live in perfect peace and harmony. And that, to be honest, in a less violent version, that is a narrative that we kind of hear out there. You know what I mean? If your faith is mediocre, all right. If your faith is fervent, like if you think, well, I think it's actually very important that we go to Mass on weekends. I think it's very important that we live a life in coherence with the Church's teaching. And these are just the basics, by the way. That this isn't anything exceptional at all. Just believing what the Church believes, that should be kind of a minimum in order to be part of the Church. You know what I mean? It's like, if you want to be part of the GAA, but I want to play hurling my own way. I want to use a tennis racket. And I want to pick the ball up off the ground. And I want to be able to shoulder people into the face. Okay, you can have your ideas and your opinions, but you can't play that and call that hurling because it's not hurling. Yeah, but no, but who you tell me what is and isn't hurling? The rule book, love. The rule book. Right? That's what tells you what is and isn't hurling. And I actually must get a copy of the GAA book so I can use this analogy with a prop. That is what tells you what's hurling and what football is and what they're not. Thou cannot, as the fifth commandment of the GAA, thou canst not use a tennis racket. You know, I mean, it's clear. It's the rule book. So that's what actually defines that is the authority that allows us to say this is hurling and this isn't. But when it comes to the faith, then, if we're in any way clear about our faith, it's implied that we're kind of the problem. We're the ones stirring up trouble. We're the ones who are now getting in the way of all this unity. You know, we're kind of the fly in the ointment. Why can't you just let live and let live? Let everyone do their thing. But ye Catholics have all these rules about sex and contraception, and then you're all closed-minded as regards abortion and regards gender. You know, you're closed-minded. It's your fault, right? Leave all of these teachings, and then we will all be one. You guys are the problem. Do you know, it's like that thought is out there. It's like in politics, it is absolutely there. In social life in general, I mean, in a school, I mean, if you have a family who really want to practice the faith, even in a Catholic school, that might not even be viewed too popularly by the principal, you know. So there are, this thought isn't entirely gone. So what does Eliezer do? Again, this is not today's reading, but Tuesday's. He says he's an old man, so he wants to give his life for the Lord. And then his friends, some of whom were Jews, some of whom were Greeks, said, look, just get a bit of vegetable, we'll call it, what's that stuff called today? That's fake meat. It's not corn, right? So get a bit of corn, it looks like meat, but it's not meat, but you can eat it knowing it's not meat, and then the king thinks you've eaten the meat, and then your life is saved. Good job. And so corn was invented, right? And then Eliezer said, well, actually, see, if I do that, then all of the young men who know me to be a man of faith will say, Eliezer, he apostatized. So even if I've saved my own life, and I know in my heart of hearts that I didn't actually eat the pork, I've given a bad example. Why not just obey the law? follow the Lord until the end, considering I'm so close to the end anyway. And so he does. He does not taste pig's meat, and he is killed, even though he could have saved his life, but he did not want to give bad example, otherwise known as scandal in this circumstance. That would be scandalous. In the same day, so Tuesday, we have Zacchaeus then, who recognizes his wrong and says he'll give away half his property, and if he has defrauded anyone, he'll give him back 4 times as much. That would probably bankrupt him. But he sees the need to give generously to God. And let me move on to, just fast forwarding to today. King Antiochus is still making life rather difficult for the Jews. And again, imagine if this altar was taken down and some sort of an altar to Mother Earth was put up. So say, for example, just get 2 tree stumps and a kind of a thingy glass or metal tabletop. And then all of you have to come in, right? And there's a little statue of Mother Earth, right? She's kind of round. I don't know what the statue of Mother Earth looks like. She's a big girl. Anyway, so there's a statue of Mother Earth there, right? Okay? And you have to come in. There's a little coal in front of her. And all you have to do then is just pick up a few grains of incense and drop them on the coal in front of Mother Earth. Now, if you just imagine that happening here, how would that kind of make you feel? Because if you know what you're doing, you're burning incense to Mother Earth, who is not God. Because, well, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I don't know. We have a creed. This is already defined. I believe in one God, the Father, Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. Not bulbous Mother Earth, okay? He's just not a God. Right? Mother Earth is not a God. We have one God, Father Almighty, Jesus, only begotten Son, Holy Spirit, the love between them. It's all defined already. We don't have to go making this up. So if I'm lighting incense or burning incense to Mother Earth, that's apostasy. That's idolatry. That is a serious problem. Now, obviously, we don't have that in today's culture so overtly. We don't burn incense to other gods so overtly. But what do we do with our time? Especially Sunday mornings. So the time allocated for the glory of God, for the worship of God. What do I do with that time? So maybe it's more important to me that I run, these days, there's an awful lot of sports take place on a Sunday morning, cycling especially, a lot of GAA as well. For those who aren't Irish, that's Gaelic Athletic Association, all of the Irish sports. A lot of them take place on a Sunday morning. So if that's where my time goes, when I should be worshipping God, then I've now placed that fun or support of my team above the worship of God. That's idolatry. So it's not as overt, it's not as clear-cut, it's not as evident as burning incense to another God, but in my choice, it is absolutely implicit, what I'm choosing to do over the worship of God. That's idolatry. But in these circumstances here, they were actually burning incense or making offerings to other gods. I mean, it was blatant. There's no, you weren't duped into doing it. You knew exactly what you're doing. This is the altar of God, and now we're burning incense or making a sacrifice to another god. So Mattathias, when he's one of the Maccabees, when he sees this, he says, "You are a Jew making a sacrifice here?" And he slays the man. He kills him. So now we're not saying this is what we should be doing, but this was the zeal that he had, and in a way it's like a visual representation of what happens when we have the truth and then we choose idolatry instead. We choose something so inferior instead. We choose to serve a God that isn't a God at all. So we choose to serve just it's a thought, it's an idolatry, it's an ideology. It's not God, because there is no other God. So what happens when we do that? Spiritual death. You have apostatized. I've said, so that's God. God has revealed himself. This is the creed. Okay. No thanks. No thanks. Don't want it. So I'm cutting myself off from God, the source of all life. Deliberately, by my own choice. So we're not saying, again, that we should be slaying people who, put something above God. But this is a visual representation of what happens spiritually when we do that. You know, if we choose something that's not God, we have chosen death. If we choose anything that's not God for all eternity, that is death. Anything that's not God for all eternity. So this is really, really important. So then Matthias and others, they gather a resistance force, and we'll see how that plays out later. Obviously, in the end, thankfully, they are victorious. But just for us today, I think one of the key things is when we look at our relationship with God, something which I never remember hearing growing up, but I think it's a very useful thought. We should give generously to God. I think too often we aim for the canonical minimum, aim for validity, aim for what's the absolute minimum I have to do to be a Catholic. But imagine in any relationship, imagine you saying to your dear wife, you know, what's the minimum I have to do to love you? Do you know what the answer will be? It's fine. It's fine. Then you know you're in serious trouble. Okay? Because she'll say, oh, no, it's fine. No, it's fine if that's the way you look at it. That's fine. You're dead. So, like, you would never say that in a relationship. What's the minimum I have to do to show my love for you? It's like, it's such an awful way to look at a relationship. But we do that. Like, with God, if I just go to Mass on Sundays, try not to kill anyone, then we're kind of there. Rather than saying, like, what is there more the Lord is asking me? And it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, we ought to be priests and religious or live as a hermit. But in my day, the way I live, my travel to and from work, can I give that time more consciously to God? Can I be more generous with God in my time, my talent, my treasure? Can I be more generous with God? Can I give more than the canonical minimum? Because the Lord himself promises there's no one who has left father or mother or houses, brothers, sisters, or land who will not receive 100 times as much, and persecutions. So, but the Lord promises whatever we give for him, we'll get. Again, that's not the reason we do it. We don't give these things up because I want to get 100-fold back. It's like a really good bet. You know, that's not. It's not. We don't do it for those reasons. But if I'm generous with God, I won't lose out. Trust that the Lord will be generous with you if you are generous with him. So we ask the Lord today, as we are entrusted with these amazing, stunningly beautiful treasures of our faith, that we can give generously to him and witness to these treasures that we have received to a world that desperately needs them. Amen.